it will be time to take a look at the next striker battleship. This is the Tempest Striker. Now this ship is known for its terrifying alpha damage. You can get around 25,000 to 50,000 damage with the artillery cannons, and it's also known for its very long range. Technically you should be able to hit targets up to 400 kilometers away with the right build, and that is very impressive. Now let's take a look at the trait description. Advanced large cannon upgrade bonus will give you plus 5% large cannon damage, minus 5% large cannon activation time, plus 5% large cannon tracking speed, so far very similar to the Apocalypse Striker. Advanced battleship command bonus will give you minus 4% signature radius. So far it looks really good. The ship can use the micro warp drive because the signature radius will be slightly reduced, and you can use it as a sniper as well as a close to mid-range ship. In my case, I prefer to use the Tempest Striker as a sniper. Ship has 2 drones, 7 high slots, 4 medium slots, 6 low slots, 3 combat and 3 engineering rigs, a very decent cargo hold capacity, very decent defense. Now this ship is a shield tank, however I think you can make a armor tank with this ship as well. But in most cases my strikers don't have a tank, they rely solely on DPS. A decent capacitor with a decent recharge rate, very comparable to the other striker battleships, can lock 8 targets. Signature radius is a little bit smaller than the other striker battleships. Scan resolution is also really good, and strength is also looking okay. And of course, as with the other Mimitar ships, this ship is the fastest striker battleship that we currently have. So that makes the Tempest Striker very unique in its own way. So let's take a look at the build. Currently I have a DPS build, 2355.06 DPS with the large autocannons, which is really good for a default cold DPS value. The autocannons have optimal range of 6.24 kilometers, accuracy fall of 29.64 kilometers, tracking speed 9.22, reload 10 seconds, and activation time 3.96 seconds. So overall, very decent cold stats. Should be vastly improved once the siege mode is active. 1 neutralizer, dual webs, 1 scrambler, 1 afterburner, large capacitor battery, a shield booster, dual gyro stabilizers, and 1 adaptive shield hardener. Now I have this 1 adaptive hardener just to help with the tank out just a little bit, but in most cases I would actually use this ship with 3 gyro stabilizers, or in some cases with 4, basically in the same way as I use the Apocalypse Striker. Now as for the rigs, this is where I did change things a lot. I have dual 2P combat integration modules that focus on rate of fire, and they also focus on cannon damage. And I have the third rig, which focuses on rate of fire. This is the combination that I like for highest possible DPS. Haven't tried to see how much DPS I will get with 3 2P combat integration modules using the same rigs. And the engineering rigs are focused on capacitor. This is the combination that I practically use on most ships that have a decent tank, and in the case of this ship, having a nice capacitor is also very helpful to maintain the afterburner running as long as possible, or the micro warp drive, depends on what you like to use. Now let's take a look at the active stats. Now this is the cold DPS. 487.86 meter per second is the afterburner speed. 2.6 kilometers per second is the 2.6 thousand DPS without the siege mode. Now the siege mode will give you plus 100% damage, and of course turret tracking will be vastly reduced, and the rate of fire of your turrets should also be improved. So I think it will be time to take a look at the cold DPS with Siege Mode 3883.35 DPS, which is actually really good. Almost 4000 DPS cold. And of course the speed will be vastly reduced, 48.79 meter per second. Signature radius is 427 meters with the Siege Mode, while the other strikers have around 600 to 900 meters, which I would say it helps a lot. The skill bonus does help a lot with the signature radius. 4432.72 with one gyro stabilizer, and with the second one the DPS is 4964.84, almost 5000 DPS, and that is actually really nice. It has a similar tracking to the Apocalypse Striker with the
docking request accepted.
Siege Mode, and that is very important. That means you can hit targets really easily. Now let's take a look at the triple gyro stabilizer build. Now this should be fun. I expect around 5.2 thousand DPS. The cold value is now 4052.11, and that is very nice. Now let's try out with one of these damage mods active. DPS is 4626.18. With the second one, the DPS is 5182.21, and with the third one, the DPS is 5,500. Very impressive. And of course the tracking is 0.46, activation time 2.76 seconds, which means you will be able to hit a webbed target without a problem. And that means you can actually apply that DPS. And now with the 4 gyro stabilizers, the cold DPS is 4133.96, which is really good. Okay, now let's take a look at the active stats. With one gyro stabilizer, the DPS is 4.7,000. With dual gyro stabilizers, the DPS is 5.2,000, almost 5.3,000. With 3 damage mods active, it's 5.6,000, and with the fourth one, the DPS is 5.8,000, or more accurately, 5,880.24. You know, that's actually really good. With a nanocore, I think I'd be able to get around 7,000, maybe a little bit above 7,000 DPS, and the range is actually really nice. Accuracy and tracking is also surprisingly very nice on the large Autocannons. So far I'm actually very happy with this ship. Now let's take a look at the artillery performance. Now the large artillery cannons have very bad tracking, but they have very nice alpha damage and they have very nice range. So it will be time to see the performance of the large artillery cannons. Now the first build is with 4 gyro stabilizers. I usually prefer to use tracking computers with gyro stabilizers with the artillery cannons just to improve the accuracy. The cold DPS is 1784.96 without the siege mode. With the siege mode, the DPS will go up to 2,600. Now with one damage mode active, the DPS is almost 3000. With dual damage modes active, the DPS is 3,300. With 3 of these mods active, the DPS is 3,540. With 4, it's 3,676.67, which is actually really good. But the main problem with a build like this will be the tracking. The tracking is very bad. So let me quickly dock and let me get some tracking computers. And now the tracking will be significantly better. I have dual tracking computers and dual gyro stabilizers. This is basically the build that I really like to use on this ship. Now the previous build that I used did have a little bit more range. That is because I did use the range rigs in the rig integration setup, but now I did focus a little bit more on damage, and with this build I have around 500 to 600 more DPS. Now let's take a look at the range. 89.22 kilometers with one tracking computer, and with dual tracking computers it's 112 kilometers. Optimal accuracy of 102 kilometers, so should hit targets at 200 kilometers without a problem. Tracking is 4.57. With one and with dual gyro stabilizers, with the siege mode, the DPS will be 3112.02, and that is actually really good with long range weapons. Actually very good, because some of my other ships don't have such DPS, even with the medium to close
Docking
range
request
weapons.
accepted.
Okay, you can also take dual target painters. They should help at doing more damage to the target. And now let's do a little target practice. Now first I have to say, don't use a build like this. I'm just trying something out for fun. This build is not good. Don't fit 5 tracking computers on the Tempest Striker. 1043 is the signature radius, 1055.43 meter per second is the speed with the micro warp drive, which is actually really fast. So I will try to see if I am going to be able to hit targets at around 400 kilometers. With the previous build I was able to hit targets at around 410 kilometers, but once I removed the rigs that improved the optimal range, then of course the maximum possible range of the cannons will be reduced. But I do have a little bit more DPS and a little bit more alpha damage, so I think the trade was really good. So let me lock on some targets that are very far away. Now first I will open fire without the siege mode, just to see if I'm going to be able to hit the target. Okay, all tracking computers have been activated, and it did hit the Celestis from 360 kilometers, which is actually really nice. So with the current build you are able to hit targets at extreme distances. Now let me try out the siege mode, and I will try different targets, so I can easily hit that cruiser, and I'm doing decent damage. 2147 at this range is impressive. With the previous build I was able to do damage similar to this, but at 410 kilometers, which was able to shoot down frigates that are trying to approach you. Now let's try to shoot that destroyer. Should be able to hit the target, and it did. 1039 damage at 365 kilometers. Very nice. Okay, now let me take more range. I want to see if I am still able to hit at 400 plus kilometers. Makes me wonder if the previous build was a little bit more practical, because I was able to easily shoot down frigates at this range, but I did not have enough DPS and alpha damage. Now I will try to shoot down the frigate at 402 kilometers. Waiting for the ship to slow down, and then I will enter siege mode. And now let's activate all tracking computers. and it missed. Well, with this current build, it looks like that I don't have over a 400 kilometer range. It does hit targets at 360 to 380 kilometers, but above that, it just is not able to hit anything. So, the previous build that I had for the Tempest Striker was able and was very capable at shooting down frigates at such a extreme range. But with this current build, I guess that's just not going to happen, and that's mostly because I changed the rigs. With the first build, I did use 3P Comet rig integrations, and I combined range, rate of fire, and alpha damage. Basically, that's the build that I used. With this build, I have improved the DPS and alpha damage, but the maximum possible range definitely took a massive hit. Well then, let's do something a little bit more serious with this ship, and let's actually do some missions. Now, with the previous build on the Tempest Striker, I was mostly sniping at 120-130 kilometers. With this build, because I have reduced the range, I will keep range at around 100 kilometers. Should be more than enough to hit the targets. Now, the trick with the large artillery cannons on the battleships is to keep small targets at range. That way you will hit them no matter how fast they go. The target's speed isn't important when they are at a very long range away from you. Even very bad tracking will be enough to shoot down most of the small ships at a very long range. So far, seems like no issues with hitting bombers and frigates with the siege mode at this range. Now, I still like to prefer switching the siege mode on and off depending on the target. Usually I snipe the small ships first without the siege mode, and then I focus on the big ships with the siege mode. For small targets you need more tracking, for big targets you need more damage and DPS. And so far I think the current ship is doing that really well. On average I will be getting around 15,000 damage on these ships every hit, which is really nice. The Apocalypse Striker does get 10,000 to 15,000 max. This gets 15,000 on average, and that's one of the things that this ship is really good at. I know I have a lot of friends that use the Tempest Striker for PvP as a sniper, and a couple months ago we actually had a Tempest Striker fleet in low sec that were designed to shoot down AFK battleships on gates, and it actually worked really well. We had some very nice kills. We were able to one-shot faction cruisers. I remember that one Cinnabal that survived one hit, and I had to finish the Cinnabal off with the Trollnado. And of course the gate guns did get me, but that's okay, it was still very fun. Now, as for the PvE use, in high sec you don't need a lot of tank, and in high sec you don't have to use a neutralizer. Basically, if you want to use this ship in high sec missions as a sniper, all you need is dual tracking computers, dual gyro stabilizers. You can fit couple target painters. I would say fit 3 target painters and 1 web or 1 scrambler. The web and scrambler is useful if by any chance one of the fast ships accidentally approach you. But besides that, using 3 target painters is really nice. Will improve the accuracy of the hits quite a bit. Now the target painters have a range of up to 100 kilometers. That's practically their optimal range that I use them at, and so far I have no problems with them. In low sec, I would go with a more tanky build. Now we did have a chance to shoot down 1 Tempest Striker in low sec, and that thing was really tanky. And from my personal experience, a Tempest Striker can track a cruiser orbiting at 40 kilometers. And if you have a tracking computer with very good rigs and skills, you really don't have to worry about any rotors, or you don't have to worry about any other cruiser that can engage you while you are running a mission. The one cruiser that can be a threat to this ship is the RB covertops, because the RB has very nice tracking disruptor bonus. And they can be quite a threat, because once they apply the tracking disruptors on your ship, you will not be able to do much against the RB covertops. And speaking of the RB covertops, I really have to start flying that ship. I actually miss flying the RB covertops. And I will also make a new build for one. I have a lot of ideas with a lot of ships, but in most cases I'm already busy doing PvP or exploration. Lately I didn't have a lot of time for exploration. I wish to do that a lot more often. It's actually very fun, and surprisingly I see a lot of sites lately. Now, even before the patch where they did change the site respawn rate, I did find a lot of them, and of course I made a big portion of my ships with exploration. But with the last couple of weeks, I was really busy with PvP. There were targets everywhere. And of course I'm not going to miss on that opportunity. I still like to destroy ships, so I will keep on doing that. It's very fun. Now, so far I am clearing this mission really well. As you can see, so far no issues with the tracking. I maintain the same idea from before, keeping the targets at range. And of course, turning the siege mode on and off when needed. Against battleships, you don't really have to keep them at range, but I still do that, so that I am prepared once the next wave spawns in. Now, I'm not really sure if they did change the animations of the turrets, but I'm pretty sure that the turret animation was improved. Somehow it looks a little bit better. There is more. I feel like they added a little bit more effects, but that might be just me. so far, really happy with this build. Now I'm still thinking if this build is better than the previous one. Mostly because I really liked the ridiculous range that I had on the Tempest Striker. Not really sure if the DPS and alpha damage improvement was worth the range, but higher DPS and higher alpha damage means that I'll be able to shoot down ships faster. Although I will not be able to shoot them down from the same distance as before, but still I will be able to shoot them down a little bit faster with this current build. Well then, that was a very interesting first mission. Definitely the ship does feel a little bit different. Now I was asked to make a list from best to worst striker battleship, and I really don't think that a list like that will be fair for the ships, because every striker battleship has something that the other striker doesn't. So each of these ships has something unique going for them, which makes them all good in different situations. For example, the Megatron Striker is good if you have a good warping on your target, so that you can immediately land very close and apply full damage. The Apocalypse Striker has very decent range, very decent alpha damage and tracking, but the DPS will be a little bit lower than the Megatron Striker. The Raven Striker is tanky, however the Raven Striker has terrible damage application, and the siege mode on the Raven Striker is practically useless against anything smaller than a capital ship or a station. And we have the Tempest Striker that has scary alpha damage, and it has terrifying range. So each one of these ships has something unique for them, and all of them are very good in their own way. So that's what I would say for the forest striker battleships. Still have to actually go and fly the Raven Striker after the balance patch. I'm very curious to see how that ship will work. Now for most of my strikers, as you could see, I prefer a DPS build. Now the Raven Striker and Tempest Striker can both do a very nice tanky build. I would say they feel a little bit more tanky than the Megatron Striker and the Apocalypse Striker, and that's one of those things that is also unique to those two striker battleships. Alright, well, that would be for the Tempest Striker for today. Overall, I would say that I'm quite happy with the results, quite happy with the range, and quite happy with the DPS output on this ship. I would say that I did improve the DPS and alpha damage quite a bit, but again, I sacrificed a little bit of range in order to achieve this amazing DPS. So with that being said, hope that you enjoyed. Hope that the builds here can help you with your ship. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and I'll see you next time.